All right, hey everybody, Nerds Drink Whiskey. This is our kind of our final episode of this series until next week. It's going to hopefully we'll do the last Saturday of the month. We do come down here and we shoot the podcast. And usually there's a whiskey tasting that was canceled this week, but we're still recording here. But if you want to come down and drink with us, we're recording the podcast, and we'll be down here and. Come down and have a couple shots of whiskey with us. But anyways, before we try the Amador, you wanted to discuss a little bit about the band Metallica.
Yeah, so they've got a new album coming out right around the time this podcast comes out. And I've heard a little bit about it. I think Mark's heard some of it. And thought we'd maybe discuss, because I know I'm a bit of a metalhead, and I know Mark is, so...
Now, let's face it, Metallica has not put out anything, as far as maybe I'm just picky, but they have not put out anything worth listening to, not even if you handed it to me for free. They have not put out anything worth listening to since Load and Reload. I actually didn't mind the Black Album too much, but it was definitely the jump the shark moment. But from what I've heard, and I've only heard 2 or 3 songs, but from what I've heard... it seems to be better. I mean, it's not Ride the Lightning or Master of Puppets or Kill 'Em All or Justice or even the Black Album, but it's better than anything they've put out in decades. It's got that visceral feeling. The lyrics seem to be leaning a little more towards more meaningful, and the production seems to be a little better than what they've had, because it was either overproduced or it seemed like certain instruments were buried, or there was always weird problems, the drum sound, whatever. But so far, I think this is the best thing they've put out in decades. I don't know.
Well, so I've only heard, I think there was one song on the radio that they've been playing, and it's okay. I wouldn't know it was Metallica if they didn't say it. And my problem is, you know how you hear like old people shout at youngsters, "Oh, it's just a bunch of noise." That's all I'm hearing is a bunch of noise. Like, there's a couple parts where you actually can tell what instruments they're playing, but otherwise they're like, look how fast I can play the guitar. And it's just a whole bunch of noise strung together. Maybe there's some other songs on that album where you can actually, tell that there's notes being played.
I think they did get a little, because like these are like old rich guys, let's face it, that are trying to sound like they did when they were, poor guys, and so I think that they did kind of confuse being fast, like, oh, well, see, we can still play fast. Well, we didn't necessarily care about you playing fast. Fade to Black was a very slow song, but the thing that should not be had some very slow parts to it. But playing fast is not really as important as I think maybe they were thinking. So there is that one song. I think I know the song you're talking about. I don't listen to the radio, but there is one song where it's like it seemed like speed was a bigger priority to them than just crafting a good song. But since I've heard about like I said, I think 2 or 3 songs, it has that visceral feel without sounding cheap. Kind of like a good whiskey. You can have that. You can have a kick at the end, but on the finish, but without that turpentine-y, a little bit too harsh feel. So,
would you say that? Do you know if the band actually put this one together, or if they hired a bunch of producers to kind of make it for them? Because there's a trend, and it's not new, to get songwriters, professionals hired to create the music, and then whatever name plays it or performs it, and that's how you become famous. Make a great album or whatever. For example, Bieber is up for a bunch of Grammys for his new album, but he probably spent $10 million hiring people to produce it for him, and there's because there's like 10 songwriters on every single one of those. So yeah, you can hire, you can buy a good song, but I don't really appreciate that quite as much as a single person with creativity coming up with an original music. So.
The viewers can correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't believe Metallica has ever used outside writers on anything. I don't believe they've ever used outside writers. They do always use a producer. I think Bob Rock no, it wasn't Bob Rock. It was I'm blanking on the name of the producer, but I think they used the same producer they've used before. But so yeah, I'm sure a lot of production money was spent. I'm sure it was a big name producer, but I think that this was all their creation. So
yeah, so I'm looking forward to the rest of the album dropping, and we'll probably talk about thoughts once we've heard the whole thing. But for now, I think we need to drink some whiskey.
I think so, but let me say one thing. You used the word dropped. I always like to say good albums are released, bad albums are dropped. So the Bieber album, it definitely drops, but it's just you drop bad things. It's I don't know. Maybe it's just a word thing with me. I don't know. But I don't know. Amador, have you ever tried Amador before?
I can't say I have. This is another under $10 potentially good one that we can see, or let the viewer know if it's worth spending their money on.
Yeah. So this month we're focusing on inexpensive whiskeys, and this is Amador, another under 10 for a shot at your local bar. Probably should be. If they charge 20, then they suck, and you shouldn't go to that bar. That ain't bad.
Yeah, I'm good with that. It's very different from the Woodford or the Colonel Taylor. Yeah, it's kind of lighter, a little more like flowery and fruity, but it's good.
Yeah, that's. I think I still like the Woodford a little better, but this is definitely a little bit more mild, a little lighter. Yeah, definitely. I would say thumbs up on the Amador.
Yeah, if I'm gonna get myself some dinner and order a side of whiskey, this would definitely do.
Cool. All right, so thumbs up on the Amador, and last week's Woodford, and a thumbs down on the Colonel Taylor.
There's a couple of varieties of Colonel Taylor. We tried one of them. We're not sure about the others. Yeah. So, and I'm not even sure. The menu didn't exactly have a bunch of information on these. It was the single malt from New York, but they might have a couple of other, or single barrel, small batch. But there's probably a couple others. We're not sure about those. Maybe we'll come across them at some point and give those a try.
Cool. All right. So, remember, last Saturday of the month, come down to Pints and Quarts in Lacey, Washington, and drink some whiskey with us. See you next week. Hey everybody, welcome to another 2 minutes of tech. For this episode, I'm going to go over a trick on how to properly tell your Google Pixel phone good morning. Okay, Google. Good morning.
Good afternoon, Mark.
And fair warning, if you sleep in, your phone will actually mock you for that.
The time is 4:09 p.m. The weather in Lacey currently is 50 degrees and cloudy, with a high of 52 degrees. By the way, you need to tell Wi-Fi I'm going to help nuns save sick orphan children, so I can actually go drink whiskey.
She's lying. Just ignore that.
Have a nice day.
President Obama's administration has removed the Arctic Ocean from any new oil or gas leasing for the next 5 years. Alaska Public Meet.
So then, after it gives you your regular briefing, it'll actually start reading you different news highlights. But you may not like the highlights that it gives you. So, what you do is you go into your settings. And so what we're going to do is we're going to go into our settings by hitting our home screen there. And going into our settings, and if you scroll all the way down, you see one that says Google. So you press that, and then you scroll down, and you see one that says Search and Now. And on mine, it's the second to last one. So you go into Search and Now, and you see a Google Assistant. So what we want to do is go into the settings of Google Assistant, and that should be right up near the top. And you've got down there, it says your name and all that. And then it says your news, and you can go into news. Let me just do that again. At the very top, it has the word Customize. Click the word Customize, and you can then choose between NPR, Fox News, ABC. So that's how you edit how your phone is going to respond when you tell it good morning. You want to edit the news, you can edit all kinds of different things. So if we go back here and back here, you can also edit my day to where it shows you the weather, maybe gives you your work commute if you drive, and have different options on your drive. It can tell you your next meeting, as you heard in our preview. It can tell you reminders, all kinds of different things. And all you're doing is telling your phone good morning. And then it just gives you kind of a nice daily brief. And then for the rest of the morning, it'll read you news while you get ready for work. So that's kind of nice. But anyways, that's this episode of 2 Minutes of Tech.